Hey there, ready to become a wind energy whiz? We've been going through that podcast episode you sent, all those articles you bookmarked, and, well, let me tell you, I'm seriously pumped about this deep dive. We're not just talking about, those graceful giants spinning in the wind. This is a whole energy revolution brewing.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
So buckle up because we're about to catch some serious brain gain on everything from how those wind turbines actually work to why offshore wind farms might just be the coolest thing, well, since sliced bread. And of course, the big question, what does the future hold for wind energy? Okay, let's jump right in. The podcast kept mentioning kinetic energy. I don't know about you, but that term always makes me think of some epic chase scene in an action flick. So break it down for me. What's really going on when wind gets those turbine blades spinning? Is it really as powerful as it sounds?
You're not wrong to think action-packed. Kinetic energy is basically the energy of motion. Think of it this way. A bowling ball rolling down the lane that's got way more punch than a tennis ball at the same speed.
Right.
Same principle with wind. The faster the wind whooshes by and the larger those turbine blades, the more of that motion energy, that kinetic energy gets captured. And that translates to some serious electricity generation. In fact, did you know that globally, wind energy can now crank out over 800 gigawatts? That's enough to power hundreds of millions of homes.
800 gigawatts.
Okay.
Now, that's what I call harnessing some serious power. It's amazing to think about those silent giants just out there catching the breeze and lighting up our world.
It really is something.
Speaking of which, the podcast mentioned China, the US, and Germany as the big players in the wind energy game right now. But then there's all this buzz about offshore wind farms. Those always seem so futuristic to me. Are those really the game changers they're hyped up to be?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine this. Wind speeds out at sea are like, the super athletes of the wind world, stronger and more consistent than their landlocked counterparts.
Makes sense.
And that means offshore wind farms can pump out even more electricity more reliably, too.
Gotcha.
It's no wonder that countries with a lot of coastline, like the UK and Denmark, are all in on this tech. They're tapping into a clean energy source that's about as vast as the ocean itself. And the best part, the cost of offshore wind energy is plummeting, making it a real contender against those fossil fuels we're trying to ditch.
Okay, that's seriously impressive. I had no idea offshore wind was becoming so efficient and affordable. It feels like we're on the verge of something huge here. But what I find really fascinating is how wind and solar energy can actually work together, almost like a tag team for clean energy. Sunshine, solar panels do their thing, wind picks up, turbines take over.
You're spot on. It's like they have this perfect energy marriage, balancing each other out. Think about it. Solar power peaks during those sunny daylight hours, right when we need it most. But as the sun sets and energy demands decrease, guess who steps up? Wind power, generating clean energy throughout the night. And get this. The podcast gave this really cool example. In some places, they're pairing rooftop solar with offshore wind farms. So during the day, solar panels are busy powering homes and businesses. And then as the sun dips below the horizon, the wind farm kicks in, keeping everything running smoothly.
That's brilliant. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance of renewable energy, ensuring a constant flow of power no matter what time of day it is.
It's a beautiful thing.
But even with all this amazing potential, I know wind energy isn't without its challenges, and the podcast definitely touched on that, especially when it comes to those times when the wind just, doesn't blow. Which begs the question, what happens then? Do we just go dark?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And it's something that engineers and scientists are working hard to crack. One of the most promising solutions is energy storage. Think of it like giant batteries for the grid. When the wind's really whipping, generating more power than we need at that moment, we can store that excess energy in these massive batteries.
Right.
Then when things calm down a bit or the wind takes a break, we can tap into those energy reserves and keep the lights on.
So it's like having a backup generator, but instead of relying on fossil fuels, we're using clean energy that we've already captured from the wind. Now, that's some seriously smart thinking. But of course, it's not just about the technical stuff. The podcast also raised some valid concerns about the impact of wind farms on wildlife, especially birds and bats. And then there's the visual impact on the landscape and the noise that some people find disruptive. How do we balance the benefits of wind energy with these potential drawbacks?
You've hit on a crucial point. It's not enough to just build wind farms wherever the wind blows strongest. We have to do it responsibly and minimize any negative impacts. And thankfully, there's a lot of research and innovation happening in that area. For starters, researchers are developing new turbine designs that are less likely to harm birds, and wind farm operators are implementing sophisticated wildlife monitoring programs to reduce risks.
That makes sense.
And when it comes to those concerns about visual impact and noise, well, it all comes down to careful planning and engaging with the community.
So it's about choosing locations wisely, taking the environment into account, and making sure everyone's voice is heard. It seems like this is where things get really interesting, right? Because we're not just talking about technology anymore, but also about how we integrate that technology into our world in a way that works for everyone.
Exactly. Building a sustainable future isn't just about finding solutions, it's about finding solutions that work on all levels: environmental, social, and economic.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the raw power of kinetic energy, the game-changing potential of offshore wind farms, and the importance of responsible development. But what about the future? What does the road ahead look like for wind energy? Well, the podcast mentioned something about floating wind farms. Floating wind farms. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. What's the deal with those? Is that really a thing?
Oh, it's totally a thing, and it's every bit as cool as it sounds. You see, those traditional offshore wind farms we talked about, they need a solid seabed to anchor to, which limits them to shallower waters. But floating wind farms, they're like the pioneers of the deep. We're talking massive turbines mounted on platforms that literally float out there in the open ocean, tethered to the seabed by super strong cables.
Hold on. We could put wind farms in the middle of the ocean now. That's insane. But it also sounds, well, incredibly difficult and expensive.
It definitely comes with its own set of engineering challenges, but the payoff could be huge. Think about it. Deeper waters often have even stronger and more consistent winds. Plus, it opens up vast new areas for wind energy development, areas that were previously off limits. It's like discovering a whole new continent of clean energy.
Okay, I'm getting serious renewable energy envy right now. So we've got these massive floating wind farms harvesting energy from the deep. What are we supposed to do with all that power?
Well, besides powering our homes and cities, there's another really exciting possibility on the horizon: green hydrogen.
Wait, green hydrogen? Like the stuff that could power cars and even entire industries without any emissions?
That's the one. Basically, we can take the electricity generated by those mighty wind farms, use it to split water molecules through a process called electrolysis, and boom, we get green hydrogen. A clean fuel source with the potential to revolutionize sectors that are really tough to decarbonize, like heavy industry and long-haul transportation. Imagine a world where planes and ships are cruising around on wind-powered fuel.
Now that's a future I can get behind. But all this amazing tech, all this clean energy, it doesn't really matter if we can't get it to the people who need it, right?
Right.
And that makes me think about our current energy grid. It seems like it would take a complete overhaul to handle all this new wind power, especially if we're talking about a massive shift towards renewables.
You're absolutely right. Modernizing our energy grid is absolutely crucial if we want to unlock the full potential of wind energy, and all renewable energy sources for that matter. We need a smarter, more flexible grid that can handle the variability of wind and solar power, efficiently move that clean electricity from those remote wind farms to where it's needed, and seamlessly integrate all those energy storage solutions we talked about.
So it's not just about building bigger, better wind turbines. It's about building a smarter, more interconnected energy system. That sounds like a monumental task. Where do we even begin?
It's definitely a huge undertaking, but it's also an incredible opportunity to rethink how we power our world. One of the most exciting developments in this area is the concept of microgrids.
Microgrids. Okay, you're going to have to break that one down for me.
Imagine a mini-grid, a smaller, localized version of the traditional grid. These microgrids can operate independently or connect to the main grid, offering greater resilience and flexibility. They're perfect for integrating renewable energy sources like wind and solar because they can be tailored to the specific energy needs of a community or even a single building.
So it's like having a mini localized energy system that can seamlessly switch between renewable sources and the main grid. That sounds incredibly efficient, especially for remote areas or places prone to power outages.
Exactly. Microgrids are a game changer for areas with limited grid infrastructure and can help strengthen the overall grid's resilience, making it less vulnerable to disruptions.
This is all so fascinating. But I have to admit, my brain's starting to feel a little bit full. It's like I've gone from thinking about windmills to this whole interconnected web of renewable energy, smart grids, and green hydrogen.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure. But that's the thing about deep dives, isn't it? They take us beyond those surface level facts and into a deeper understanding of how things really work.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, but instead of making us cry, it's filling us with a sense of hope and possibility. So with all this talk about the future of wind energy, all this incredible potential, what's the one big takeaway you want listeners to walk away with today?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that wind energy isn't some far-off dream. It's happening now. And it's not just about those iconic wind turbines, as impressive as they are. It's about reimagining our entire energy system. Remember that stat we mentioned earlier, 800 gigawatts globally? That's not a fluke. That's a sign of things to come.
It's like we're standing on the edge of a wind-powered future, and it's blowing me away. No
Hmm.
pun intended. But I have to ask, with all this talk about potential, could we really power entire cities, maybe even countries, primarily with wind? Or is that just wishful thinking?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, it's definitely within the realm of possibility. In fact, there are already places leading the charge. Take Denmark, for example. They generate a significant portion of their electricity from wind power, proving that a wind-powered future is achievable.
Wow, Denmark, you're my new renewable energy hero.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the technology, we've got the ambition, we've even got countries showing us it can be done. What's holding us back? What are the biggest hurdles we need to overcome to really unleash the full power of wind energy?
Well, like we talked about earlier, upgrading our energy grids is essential. We need a smarter, more flexible grid that can handle the fluctuating nature of wind and solar. But beyond the technical stuff, there are also political and economic hurdles to clear. We need policies that incentivize renewable energy development and level the playing field with fossil fuels.
So it's not just about the science. It's about making sure the right policies and investments are in place to support this transition to a cleaner energy future. I know we've covered a ton of information today, but there's one thing I keep coming back to. This idea of a future where clean energy is abundant, accessible, and powers our world. It's a powerful vision. And it makes me wonder, what can everyday people like me actually do to help make this wind-powered future a reality?
That's the spirit. And you're right, it's not just up to scientists and policymakers. Every single one of us has a role to play. Start by reducing your own energy consumption at home and supporting businesses that are committed to renewable energy. Get involved in your local community, advocate for cleaner energy policies, and spread the word about the amazing potential of wind power. Every little bit helps.
You know, what started as a deep dive into wind energy has turned into something much bigger, a glimpse into a future that's bursting with possibility. It's been eye-opening, inspiring, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling energized and ready to embrace the wind of change. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. But hey, the conversation doesn't have to end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep that wind energy curiosity alive. Until next time, stay curious.